Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Two Sons Podcast. I am your co-host here, Philip, and in today's episode, we are going to be moving away from the world of Westeros in the House of the Dragon. We are going to be moving from a galaxy far, far away, and we're going to be going into another galaxy, and we're going to be discussing one of the latest installments of a very well-known and veteran franchise. And that, my friends, is the newest Alien Romulus movie that has came out recently in theaters. Yes, that is right. You heard it here. We are going to be discussing Alien Romulus today. I am super excited to talk about it. Absolutely love the movie. I've seen it twice. I'm probably going to see it again. And I'm just really excited to dive into this topic and talk about it with you guys. So I did see it on opening day, and I did have the pleasure of seeing it in IMAX, which was absolutely phenomenal. I think if you're going to watch any movie in IMAX, I think you should highly watch this one in IMAX because it was just absolutely phenomenal. I did see it just in a regular theatrical screening, and it was still just as good. I think I even enjoyed it the second time around. I'm glad that I actually saw it twice before I wanted to do this review and discussion because I didn't want just like the highs of the first time I saw it to like really just bring the conversation forward. I wanted to see it again by myself because I saw it the first time with friends, and I wanted to see it again for myself just to kind of get my own feel and kind of hyper analyze it. And I loved it just as much the second time as I did the first time. There were a couple of things that I was a little nitpicky about the second time, but they were like really minuscule details, like maybe like just some CGI or effects, looked out of whack or whatever, but nothing that would really drastically bring this movie down for me. Excuse me. Sorry, I just kind of woke up, so I'm still a little groggy and waking up on this Friday morning. Um, but yeah, so like I said, I am really excited to dive into this. If you've been listening to the last two episodes, you have known that this review is coming, obviously. And yeah, I'm just finally excited to get to it and talk about it. So before we get into today's episode, we're just going to briefly go over what's going on with the podcast. So obviously I finished up the House of Dragon review. So please check out that little mini series if you have not already. Again, thank you guys for all the love and support on that. It really means a lot. Um, to myself, especially taking the time to sit here and talk to you guys. It's always nice to see the positive feedback, so I really appreciate it. Obviously, we're doing the Alien Romulus review today, and I've been thinking about what episodes I could put out going forward. For the podcast, and there's quite a few. I have quite a few ideas. I mean, obviously, we need to finish our Star Wars Acolyte series review, especially because Acolyte was not renewed for a second season and it was canceled. So that's going to be the last bit of content that we're going to get from the Acolyte. So we definitely need to finish that review. So that is definitely on my checklist. Rings of Power season two actually just dropped at the time that I'm recording this. It dropped yesterday on August 29th. I have not watched it yet. I think there's only like three episodes as of now. So I'm sure I will probably watch them over the weekend. But I would love to do a review for that, like I did for House of the Dragon. So whether I sit here and I watch it with you guys and I kind of just give you my live reaction and thoughts, or I watch it and then I sit here and I talk to you about it. Just again, please let me know if you want to see something like that. I would definitely be interested in doing something like that. So again, just let me know. And yeah, and then I'm sure there's a couple of other ideas that I have cooked up in the brain somewhere that I could do going forward. But those couple of points are what I currently have on the docket. And then obviously, excuse me, depending on the success of this video today, I am thinking about doing something for the Alien franchise as a whole. So, if you guys want to see me go back in time and kind of go over the movies and discuss them like I am doing today, again, I'll know about your feedback and any comments or views or likes that you guys bring us. Um, but other than that, yeah, after a lot of rambling, it is time to get into how we're doing. So I'm doing pretty good. Like I said, I just woke up, so still a little groggy. But at the time of this recording, it is August 30th. So I am leaving for New York tomorrow. So, by the time you guys see me like in the flesh in a different setting, it's going to be a couple of weeks because I've been pre-recording a couple of episodes that come out in anticipation for this trip up to New York. So, by the time you guys see me in a new setting, it already will be a couple of weeks. Yeah, so I am pretty much, fully packed and have everything that I need. So now it's just a matter of fact of leaving. But yeah, I'm super excited. It's gonna be a fun ride, and yeah, and I'm just excited to get out there. But other than that, otherwise I'm doing pretty good. As far as I know, my brother's still doing pretty good. Obviously he's, still loving his new job. He's getting his routines and everything set up and whatnot. Going forward, depending on what happens, I will let you guys know. I am debating on creating my own social medias for the podcast. Obviously, Joey is in charge of the social medias for the podcast, but because he's been so preoccupied with, just work and life, he has not been posting on them. And there's no point in plugging the social medias at the end of the episode if they're not going to be posted on. I'm thinking about maybe creating my own social medias. That way, stuff will actually be posted on there, and we could talk about stuff. But we'll see. It's just an idea that I have, so we'll see going forward, whether I have to do it or not. Um, but yeah, other than that, like I said, I'm excited to get into today's episode. So I think today is just going to be kind of like a casual conversation. I'm not going to go over the movie from start to finish. I'm just going to kind of highlight, some of the good things about the film, and some of the bad things, and then just kind of go from there, really. So with that being said, let's get right into it. So yeah, obviously, Alien Romulus came out last Friday. So if I look at my computer real quick, that was the 23rd, I believe. So it came out on August 23rd. I don't have actually, you know what? Give me 1 second, and then let me see if I could look up the scores while we're at it. Might as well just cover all of our bases and see. Okay, so we're gonna look at Alien Romulus. So according to Rotten Tomatoes, Alien Romulus has an 80% certified fresh on the tomato meter, which is going to be the critical score for it. And on the popcorn meter, which is going to be the audience score, it has an 86%. So overall, it has really great reviews, which is very nice. And then let's check the box office. Box office. So we see that overall, like, when it comes to reviews and how it's doing, um, it's doing fairly well in the box office right now. Right now, at the time of this recording, the movie has made $108.2 million worldwide. So obviously, the movie's only been out for a week. So I expect that number to keep rising. I think I just saw a post recently. I think for this weekend, or I don't know if it was this weekend or last weekend. It was like at the top of the box office for just sales and revenue that weekend. So, we see not only is it doing really well when it comes to the reviews and the critics, but it's also being really well received by the audience. And that obviously shows not only with the score, but obviously with the amount of money that it's made back. Um, so obviously we have a star-studded cast, some that I'm not too familiar with, to be honest. I know I hate to do this, but I don't really know their names off the top of my head. So we're gonna go back to Google, and we're just gonna look up the cast so I could just get their names right. So we have a couple characters that we're going to discuss, mostly just the big ones. So we have Kaylee Spaney as Rain. We have David Johnson as Andy. We have Archie Renault as Tyler. We have Isabella Mersad as Kay. We have Spike Fern as Bjorn and Eileen Wu as Navarro. And then I think there's another big name. We also have Ian Holm kind of making an appearance, basically his face, pretty much. The actor is passed away, but we see in the movie that his face is reconstructed as a science officer. And so he technically, the actor himself is in the movie, just computer AI generated. Um, so again, we've seen like for example, the actors that have played Kay and Rain, they have been in a couple of films recently. I know the actress that played Rain was actually in the Civil War A24 movie that actually came out this year that I have not seen. And I know Isabella Marced from the live action Dora movie. And then she might have been in Madam Web as well. Either that or she was just at a press conference because I thought I saw her at a press conference. Um, but other than that, again, we have a star-studded cast. I mean, I know David Johnson is obviously been getting a lot of love because he does a excellent portrayal as the synthetic Andy in the movie, and we'll get right into that in a second. But yeah, so those are just a couple of names of the actors and actresses. So right off the bat, I mean, again, one of the things that was really a highlight for me for this film was the cast. Obviously the film focused heavily on Rain and Andy. We see that Kay, survives for the majority of the film, but she's mostly off screen. But the film really focuses on Rain and Andy, and everybody else. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, this episode's gonna be full of spoilers, by the way. So by the time this comes out, it's gonna be already out for like 3 weeks. So if you haven't seen it yet, that's just on you. Basically, everybody dies except for Rain and Andy. Like I said, we see Kay survive the longest, besides the two, but everybody else unfortunately dies. Um, and regardless of how long they've been on screen, whether it was for like a half an hour or the whole entire movie, I thought, they did fairly well. I mean, I didn't necessarily fall in love with every single cast member, but I was able to connect with them and feel for them in the moment. Whether they were getting attacked by a facehugger or they died at the hands of a xenomorph. Regardless of how much of their backstory I knew or exactly who they were, I felt for them in that moment, and it made all the difference. Um, and yeah, I mean, it was just great seeing them, especially when you get to later on in the film, and then you start to connect with the survivors more because obviously they're around more, so you see them more, and connecting with survivors like Rain and Andy and especially Kay. You start to feel for them a lot more, especially Kay throughout the whole entire film. I just felt really bad for her because the girl was just getting the end of the short stick like over and over and over again, and she really does have like a depressing end, which is a shame. It pulls one of those like classic alien stunts where you think it's the end of the film, and then it just brings you right back into the horror, and that's unfortunately when she dies. But regardless, like I said, whether we saw them on screen the whole entire film or we saw them on screen for like maybe a half an hour or whatever, I think each of the characters had a pretty great death, which is good for an alien franchise. Whether you're dying at the hands of a chest burster or a xenomorph. I think all the deaths in the film were pretty solid, and they did a phenomenal job with that. Really just giving that type of like horror movie feel. Um, and yeah, and like I said, I really enjoyed all the characters. Especially, like I said, we're going to return to David Johnson playing Andy. He is definitely one of the highlights of the film. He does such a phenomenal job, kind of shifting his personality and characteristics to fit the character of Andy. Such a phenomenal job. And I mean, the character Andy himself goes on such a roller coaster, from the beginning of the film to the middle of the film and then to the end of the film. He just goes full circle. Excuse me one second. Hold on. uh, Sorry, my mom is flying down to Florida today, and she is texting me. Sorry, I didn't want to leave her on red. So, um, but yeah, so we see that he goes on a massive character arc, and I feel like when it comes to characters as a whole, I mean, he goes on a character arc the most, just because he's a synthetic and he gets like different programming put into him throughout the film. That's really the only way he develops as a character, pretty much, because he shifts from how we see him in the beginning of the film to he gets this new program installed in him, then he turns into a completely different person. Then he gets the program uninstalled from him, and then he turns back to who we saw in the beginning of the film. So, I mean, if we're looking at character arcs, I mean, I guess that's an example, right? Because we see him go from a more personal, lovable synthetic who is like, basically Rain's brother and sibling. And he only has one directive, which is to look out for Rain and do what's best for Rain. That we see, throughout the film that obviously he gets the module from the scientific officer put in him, and he shifts personalities more towards a smart, sophisticated Weyland-Yutani synthetic, which has a new directive, and that's to protect, the embryos and the genes of the xenomorph. And then obviously we see, towards the end of the film, he reverts back to who we met in the beginning of the film, and he kind of comes full circle. And then we see towards the end of the film that his new directive is to do what's best for himself and Rain. And again, the actor does a phenomenal job portraying both parts and kind of giving us that like split personality for the film. And it was really enjoyable to watch. I mean, like he, especially towards the end of the film, where he saves Rain from the xenomorph and he comes like flying down the elevator shaft and he drops the iconic line, get away from her, you bitch. I know some people were like, "Oh, why'd they do that? Like that was so corny, that was so cheesy." But I loved it, because not only was it an ode to one of the Alien films, but it fit his personality to a T. Because you could tell that he felt like uncomfortable saying it, because just the way he like speaks and he pronunciates like what when he was saying it, it just felt very Andy. I mean, like he was all about like the dad jokes, like throughout the film, and like I don't think a dad joke would have fit there, to be honest. So I'm glad they did what they did. Um, and yeah, I mean, I absolutely love this character. I mean, obviously Rain as a character, phenomenal actress. I loved her as an actress, but I also loved her character. Again, seeing that sibling dynamic between her and Andy was really the star of the show. And seeing her really take charge as like, the prominent female protagonist in the film, um, was really good. I thought she stepped into the role beautifully. Especially the scene where she basically saves Kay and sends her back up to the ship, and she comes back down the elevator with like the rifle in her hand. I mean, it's one of the most badass shots of the film. And she really proves that she could hold her own and stay with everybody. And like I said, I mean, the actress is phenomenal, and the character was phenomenal, and we see that she develops as a character, not as much, but she develops a little bit when it comes to the film. I mean, obviously, again, we see that sibling dynamic of both her and Andy, obviously growing up on this mining colony, for the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. And her whole goal is to make it to a planet called Ivaga. um, and she keeps dreaming about it, like she has these visions of beautiful rolling green hills and a sunrise, and she wants to go to Ivaga. She did all of her hours, at the farms, and she wants to basically book passage to Ivaga. And then we see that, because Weyland Yutani is a corporation, they screw the little guy, and they give her more hours. So basically, she's not able to go to Ivaga. Um, and this is basically how it comes full circle, because we see her meet up with some of her old friends, and they kind of cook up this crazy plan of being like, oh, there's a abandoned ship or station that's kind of orbiting the planet, and if we go on there, they might have some cryogenic sleeping chambers that we can use in order to get to Ivaga, because from where they are now to Ivaga is about 9 years, and they can't survive 9 years with whatever rations or supplies they have. So they would put themselves in like a cryogenic sleep and then be waking up, when they get there. And that's basically how it comes full circle. So that's basically how like the whole gang like connects with each other. And we see, that this is something that she's been longing for. But this is where we also see that she also hasn't told Andy, because according to the movie, Ivaga is not controlled by Weyland Yutani, so synthetics are not allowed there. So at the end of the day, she was going to go there without Andy. And we see this really sad scene when they make it to the Romulus and the Remus station, orbiting the planet, where he's basically like, well, that's okay. He's like, whatever I have to do, whatever's best for Rain, I'll do. And it's like you kind of pulls at your heartstrings and you're like, oh, like he really is just doing what's best for her. Um, and you could tell, the kind of shift that she goes through, when it comes to like, feeling all the emotions like guilt, remorse, she's upset. Um, but we see, that the whole entire film, she's kind of like grappling with the idea of like losing Andy. I mean, she was kind of hesitant on bringing him along, in order to board this space station. Obviously, some of the characters like Bjorn, treat him like crap because he's synthetic, and basically they just want to use him. I mean, that's the only reason why they invited Rain and Andy because they wanted to use Andy because he's a Weyland-Yutani synthetic. And we see, throughout the film that not only is she like running for her life and she's scared that she's going to die, but she's also seeing her brother, excuse me, somebody that she grew up with, like basically change in front of her eyes. And she does go through a small character arc. She learns to not only do what's best for her, but then do what's best for them. And she really embraces Andy as like a sibling. Like, they are a team. Like, it doesn't matter if we go to Ivaga and you're not allowed. Like, she's gonna take the risk. And we see at the end of the film, excuse me, that she puts her and Andy in cryo sleep because at the end of the day, she's not going to abandon her brother and she's going to take him to Ivaga no matter what. Um, so, we see her go on a little bit of a journey. And I mean, when I say a little bit of a journey, we see her personality and, characteristics develop a little bit. We see that sibling bond grow, even more. But then we also see her constantly battling face huggers and xenomorphs, and especially the offspring at the end of the movie. Um, so all around, whether the characters were in the film the whole entire time or we kind of said hi and bye at the same time, the cast was phenomenal and they really made this movie come alive, and that is definitely one of the strong suits of the film. I think the storytelling of the film is also a very good strong point, taking your everyday like common like lower class working man under the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, and then just kind of giving us a glimpse into their lives and doing what they need to do to survive and whatever. Um, really makes you like, feel and personalize with the characters a lot more. So I think, those two going hand in hand, kind of seeing like, the poor man's struggle. You could probably relate to that. And like, they're so desperate that they're willing to go risk their lives on this abandoned space station to get these, cryogenic sleep pods to escape, the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. So, and a lot of people could probably relate to that. So it's kind of bittersweet to see, the common everyday man struggle, and ships away from other alien movies where we've been like on board with like Weyland-Yutani synthetics or scientists or colonial marines or whatnot. And this time we're just kind of geared towards the everyday man, the everyday colonist, or worker. So I thought they did that beautifully. And again, the storytelling of just this misfit band of of friends trying to get a better lives for themselves, and they're willing to sacrifice their lives to achieve that. Is a good story. And to fit that right into the alien world and tie in every other aspects of Alien into the story, like Weyland-Yutani, um, their obsession with the xenomorphs, the xenomorphs themselves, face huggers, etc., etc. Um, they do a really good job doing that, and there wasn't one point in the story where I was bored. I mean, there were some slow parts, of the movie for sure, but it's not like I was sitting there and I was like, oh my God, when is this scene going to end? I love the film through and through. And I was hooked, every step of the way. So especially the last 30 minutes, really kind of had you on the edge of your seat. And you're just kind of like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So yeah, I mean, I think besides having a great cast of characters, as well as a great story and direction, that's also another positive to look at with this movie. Um, Finally, I like to think if I had to do like three major points, for positivity, I think the just collection of aliens themselves um, is really a strong point for this movie. I mean, obviously, seeing the face huggers act the way they do is something that we haven't seen in an alien movie before. We're so used to seeing the face huggers just kind of simply hatch from their egg and then just latch onto somebody and then, do what they have to do, and then die. But in this movie, we get a little bit of a twist, and we see that these like face huggers are put in some sort of like cryogenic hibernation, and when the room and the temperature gets too hot, they basically kind of like melt out of their pods, and we see that they're a lot more mobile and active than they usually are. We see them like swimming around in the water. We see them leaping and jumping, especially when they're chasing the characters all around the station. Like they are literally full sprinting past these characters and trying to jump on them and whatnot. And this is like the most active that we've ever seen the facehuggers. And it makes sense in a way. I mean, it would make sense. I mean, based on their anatomy and like how they look, they have legs. So it would make sense for them to like be mobile and like chase after people or like swim or whatnot. Sorry, let me answer this so my phone doesn't go off. I do not have extra earbuds. Okay, I'm gonna put my phone on silent. It doesn't keep going off. But yeah, so the face huggers in this movie were really interesting. The scene where obviously one of the face huggers impregnates one of the characters. Just kind of seeing that classic scene, watching the science officer Rook like basically explain what's going on and how it works. It's both disturbing, but that's also fascinating. I mean, because we know that throughout the Alien franchise, obviously there's been a huge presence on like sexual assault and violence and whatever, and impregnation. I mean, obviously the face huggers look a certain way, the xenomorphs look a certain way. The face huggers are basically attaching to your face and putting a giant tube down your throat to impregnate you. A lot of subliminal messaging there. Um, and that's why it's both disgusting and then also interesting, because you're sitting there and you're horrified because there's nothing that you can do for this person because as soon as they latch on, that's it. um, but it's also interesting to see how it works, especially again when you are following this like crew of like just working class everyday people. They have no idea what the hell this thing is, so they don't know how it works, and then same with the xenomorph. So it's interesting to see them like figure it out for the first time. And they're like, holy shit, what the fuck is this? um Especially the scene where Rain and one of the other characters, along with Andy, have to traverse the station, to get to the Romulus hangar bay, where their ship is, and they have to match the body temperature or the temperature in the room to their body temperature, because we learned that like the face huggers, primarily use like infrared or like they sense their prey through body temperature, so they match the body temperature of themselves to the room to kind of make themselves invisible. So it's really interesting when they get more into like the specifics on like how these creatures actually work and like how the slightest like shiver or goosebump or sweat or like ounce of fear or anxiety could like set these creatures off. And we see that exactly happen when one of the characters gets a call from his sister, who he thought was dead but is still alive, and he hears her like kind of scream and get cut off, and then he gets goosebumps, and that's what's like what really pushes the facehuggers over the edge, and that's what makes them run away. So again, very clever, really interesting to see how they use the facehuggers in this film. And I mean that only continues when we get to the xenomorph, obviously. And seeing the xenomorph obviously go from the standard facehugger to actually a new evolutionary stage where it goes from the facehugger. I'm sorry, when it goes from the chest burster to more of this like cocoon stage, which was pretty interesting. We never seen that before, in past films. So sorry, I thought I turned off my phone. um, we've seen them go straight from the chest burster to a fully grown xenomorph. But in this film, we see them go from the chest burster to more of like a cocoon, metamorphosis stage, kind of like similar to like butterflies, to a fully grown xenomorph. And honestly, I actually like that. It actually makes more sense for how that creature would evolve, at least in my eyes. I mean, it would make sense. It just hatched, it's young, it wants to find somewhere to like mature and whatever. And I think having it have a more like metamorphical stage in its like development makes total sense. Um, so seeing that was really cool. Seeing it not only be able to defend itself, where we see one of the characters, Bjorn, unfortunately meet his demise, where he gets like, some acidic blood dripped onto him and he basically just bursts. Um, but we also see the xenomorph kind of come out of that cocoon, as a fully grown, xenomorph or xenomorph, whatever you want, however you pronounce it. And not only that, but we see throughout the entire film just how smart these creatures are, hunting their prey and obviously using them for like, reproduction purposes and whatnot. And especially that scene with Kate, where she finally escapes, their ship and she meets up with her brother and Rain and Andy. And, Andy's about to open the door, but he sees that the alien is just waiting there, like waiting for him to do that. So not only can he kill her, but he can kill all four of them. And sensing this, he doesn't open the door, which causes, Kay to be basically injured and taken, down to the depths of the station to be used as a host, for a facehugger. Um, Obviously we see that they're able to rescue her in time before that happens. But we see that that xenomorph was hunting, it was a predator hunting its prey. Um, Not only that, but we also see later on in the film where Rain and Andy and one of the other characters makes it to one of these scientific stations to collect the samples to transport back to the colony. That before they're about to walk out the door, Rain hesitates and she looks into the monitor and she sees that the alien is waiting there, like stalking them, setting up like an ambush. So these creatures are extremely smart, um, especially towards the end of the film where we see Rain and Andy, basically escape the xenomorph hive, um, and one of the they turn on the anti-gravity, mechanisms, and when the gravity is turned back on, and Rain is free falling down the elevator shaft, one of the xenomorphs actually catches her and saves her, and like kind of puts her up against the elevator shaft. And at first you're like, why is it doing that? But then you realize it's doing that because there's a face hugger in the vicinity. And this xenomorph is like kind of holding Rain hostage so she can get impregnated by the face hugger. So we see the xenomorph be very clever and very smart throughout the entire film. And I think that's something that has both terrified, alien fans in the past and also made them admire the xenomorph and have them be like one of their favorite alien creatures. Um, and finally, I mean I think the icing on top of the cake is the offspring. And then when we see Kay inject herself with one of these samples, in order to kind of like heal her wounds and recover from her trauma and her injuries, we see that this sample has a side effect and it accelerates her pregnancy. And she gives birth to this like xenomorph human engineer like hybrid. And it's like a total monstrosity. And this is what eventually kills her. This is what mortally wounds Andy. And then this is what Rain has to fight at the end of the movie. And I mean, not only is the design of this creature like just absolutely hideous, but it's also terrifying as well. And not only that, but this was all practical effects. I mean, that was an actual person that was portraying that character. That was not CGI. That was an actual human being who was like a overseas basketball player that portrayed this offspring, and it was absolutely terrifying. Um, it was like one of the most gruesome parts of the movie. It was the jump scare that like scared the shit out of me the most. And it just really goes to show like how sick and twisted like some of the goals or the experiments like of the Alien franchise are, when it comes to Weyland Yutani and their goal for the perfect organism. And I mean, it was really the cherry on top, to end off the film. I mean, those last 30 minutes were like on the edge of your seat and like had you horrified. And that really is what sealed the movie for me. I mean, I love the movie through and through, but those last 30 minutes is where you were just like, oh shit, like, it's about to go down. Um, and it was great. It was absolutely phenomenal. And like I said, I think the attention to details, and the new additions and twists that they added to these creatures was really one of the final positive points of this film that really made it enjoyable for me. Um, like I said, there's a few negatives. There's none really that are that pressing, to be honest. I mean, I know some people have complained about the way Science Officer Rook looked, with the AI and um, the face. Yes, it did look a little out of place, but I don't think it took anything away from the movie. To be honest, I mean the character of Science Officer Rook basically portrayed that cynical, like malevolent Weyland Yutani mindset when it came to the xenomorphs, and their DNA. So I thought it was a perfect fit. It just helped drive the story, even further. Um, but other than that, I mean, that's really the only gripe. And like I said, I don't see that as a negative, but if I had to put something in a negative, I think, that would fall in there, but it's a very small gripe. Really, even watching it the second time, I mean, I did not really see anything that bothered me, or, I thought was something negative about the film, to be honest. Um, and yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, this film was extremely positive. Like I said, besides some few odds and ends, here and there, it was an absolutely phenomenal film. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I am now on an Alien obsession. So it's definitely re-sparked my love for the franchise, and I'm really excited to go back and watch some of the other films and dive deeper into the lore of Alien and whatnot. Um, so I think before we end this episode off, I think I'm going to give you my rating. I'm going to give this probably honestly like a 9.8 out of 10 suns. I mean, like I said, this film was pretty much perfect for me. Like I said, besides a few odds and ends, which is what, like point one, point two. But overall, this film was absolutely phenomenal. It's been my favorite film of the year so far. I haven't seen too many movies, but it's been my favorite film of the year right after Dune Part 2. I still need to see Deadpool and Wolverine, so I don't know where that's going to rank. Um, you know, when it comes to films, but it's definitely going to be up there. I mean, like I said, I think my top three right now is Alien Romulus, Dune Part Two, and then Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. But yeah, I mean, like I said, absolutely phenomenal film. I had a really great time enjoying it. Like I said, if you could see it in IMAX, go see it in IMAX. It's totally worth it. Um, and yeah, let me know down in the comments below what you guys thought of the film. What you liked, what you disliked, and yeah, let me know if you guys want me to do anything Alien related in the future. Talking about the franchise, going over the other movies and whatnot. I would love to do it. So let me know if you guys want to see it. But with that being said, thank you guys for coming out to another wonderful episode of Two Sons Podcast, where we went over Alien Romulus and talked about what I liked, what I disliked, and yeah, I mean, obviously, I wasn't going to go over the entire movie from start to finish. I'm not going to take that away from you guys. Please go see it for yourself. But I just wanted to give you some of my highs and some of my lows of the film and how I enjoyed it. So, if you're wondering where you can find more lovely content from Two Sons Podcast, you can find us on Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Facebook, all under Two Sons Podcast. That's with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. You can also find us on Spotify, TikTok, and YouTube, all on Two Sons Podcast. Again, that's with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. Thank you guys for coming out to another wonderful episode. It really means a lot. Stay active on those socials, keep those notifications on, and be ready for when this episode comes out. But with that being said, thank you guys for coming out today. Please be safe. Do not do anything stupid. Have a great day, great morning, afternoon, and evening. Stay hydrated. Be on the lookout for face huggers, please. And I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye for now.